Damian Cross was 20 minutes late to the reunion where they'd invited him to fail. He stood outside the Plaza Hotel's presidential ballroom, adjusting the Tom Ford suit that cost more than his mother's monthly rent used to, listening to the laughter bleeding through gilded doors. Rich laughter. White laughter. The kind that came from people who'd never worried about being the only black face in a room designed to exclude them. The same people who'd made his high school years a masterclass in isolation. He pushed open the doors. The ballroom was exactly what he'd expected, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over Manhattan's privileged alumni, champagne flowing, designer dresses and expensive suits creating a sea of white wealth that hadn't changed since graduation 5 years ago. Brittany Chen spotted him first. Her face lit up like she'd just won something valuable. She whispered to the group surrounding her, Connor Wright, Trevor Kane, Madison Pierce, all the people who turned cruelty into sport at Harrison Heights Academy. They turned as one, their expressions cycling from surprise to poorly hidden glee. If you've ever walked into a room where you were the only one who looked like you, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Damian. Brittany's voice carried across the ballroom, syrupy sweet and calculated. Oh my God, you actually came. Everyone, look who decided to show up. Our diversity scholarship recipient. Heads turned. Conversation stopped. Damian felt 30 pairs of mostly white eyes evaluate him, his suit, his posture, his blackness in their exclusive space, searching for signs of the poverty they remembered, the inferiority they'd assumed. He'd dressed carefully for this. Expensive but understated. No flashy jewelry. No obvious wealth signals. He needed them confident. Needed them to think their predictions about his failure had come true. Hi, Brittany. Damian kept his voice quiet, almost apologetic. Thanks for inviting me. Of course. We wanted everyone here. It wouldn't be complete without. She paused deliberately. All perspectives represented. Connor approached with a smirk that hadn't changed since senior year, when he'd called Damian an affirmative action admit, loud enough for the whole cafeteria to hear. Damian Cross. Man, I barely recognized you without the janitor uniform your mom used to wear to school. Scattered laughter from the group. You look great though, Damian offered, playing his part perfectly. VP at Goldman Sachs now, Connor said, straightening his Hermes tie. Just closed a $50 million deal last week. Merit-based promotion, you know how it is. But hey, we can't all be finance guys, right? What are you up to these days? Still doing the tech thing? The emphasis on tech thing carried unspoken subtext, affirmative action hire, diversity quota filler, someone who got opportunities not through talent but through skin color. I do some tech consulting work. Nothing major. Pays the bills. Damian shrugged, letting discomfort show on his face. Brittany's smile widened. That's wonderful. So humble. Trevor, didn't you say your dad's company needs IT support? Maybe Damian could help with the computers. The implication was clear, the black kid belonged in the IT department, not the boardroom. Actually, Trevor interrupted, pulling out his phone, before we get into all that, Brittany and I put together a little presentation. A trip down memory lane. Everyone gather around. The group moved toward the projection screen set up near the bar. Damian's stomach tightened, but he followed, playing the unsuspecting victim. The lights dimmed. The first slide appeared. A photo of 17-year-old Damian eating lunch alone in the cafeteria, his thrift store jacket 2 sizes too big, his face downcast. Someone had photoshopped a caption, "Future welfare recipient." The room erupted in laughter. More slides followed. Damian getting shoved into a locker. His mother in her janitor uniform at parent-teacher night, the only black parent there. The yearbook page showing him voted most likely to die homeless, a category they'd created specifically for the scholarship kid who didn't belong. Each photo landed like a punch. Each laugh from the predominantly white crowd twisted the knife deeper. Brittany stood beside the screen, narrating. Remember when Damien's mom had to clean our classrooms after school? Remember when he wore the same shoes for 2 years? Remember when he tried to join the debate team and we told him there were limited spots? The cruelty was breathtaking in its precision and its racism. They'd planned this. Curated his worst moments. Invited him here specifically to confirm their belief that the black scholarship kid had stayed exactly where they predicted, beneath them, struggling, proof that their privilege was deserved. Damien let his shoulders slump. Let his face show shame. Let them think they'd won. His hand in his pocket was recording every word, every racist undertone, every moment of their collective cruelty. When the slideshow ended, Madison raised her champagne glass. To old times. And to everyone here who earned their success the right way. The emphasis made it clear Damien wasn't included in that category. Connor clapped him on the shoulder hard enough to hurt. Hey man, no hard feelings about the photos, right? Just having fun. You know we're all colorblind here. We don't see race. Right, Damien said quietly. Colorblind. So tech consulting, huh? Trevor leaned in, his cologne expensive and overwhelming. That means you're still, figuring things out financially. Haven't quite made it yet. I get by. Brittany touched his arm with false sympathy, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper loud enough for everyone to hear. Damien, can I be honest? We invited you because we wanted to see how you turned out. And I'm just so glad you came. It's important for people to see that success isn't for everyone. Some people are meant for different paths. There's no shame in being ordinary. In accepting your place. Subscribe now because what happens next will shatter everything they believe. Where are you watching from? Comment below. The unspoken words hung in the air, your place meant beneath them, where black people belonged in their worldview. Damien was about to respond when a man in a hotel manager's uniform approached their table, his face etched with professional concern. Excuse me, but I need to speak with whoever organized this event. Brittany turned, annoyed at the interruption to her performance. That would be me. Is there a problem? I'm afraid so. The guest in our presidential suite has lodged a complaint. The noise from this gathering is disturbing them. Connor laughed, gesturing around the room at their expensive party. Tell whoever's in the presidential suite that this is a private event we paid good money for. They can deal with it for one night. We have every right to be here. The manager's expression didn't change. Sir, I don't think you understand. The presidential suite guest is not a typical customer. He owns a 15% stake in this hotel chain. When he expresses concern, we respond immediately. The table went silent. Everyone knew what 15% of the Plaza Hotel chain meant. Hundreds of millions of dollars. The kind of wealth that made their collective net worth look like pocket change. Madison's eyes widened. Who is it? Some Saudi prince? Tech billionaire? Trevor guessed. Probably some old white guy. The manager hesitated, glancing around the table until his eyes landed on Damien. Recognition flickered across his face, followed by profound respect. Actually, Mr. Cross, I didn't realize you'd come down to join the event. Should I address the noise complaint, or? Brittany frowned, confused. What are you talking about? The entire room turned to look at the manager, then followed his gaze to Damien. Damien stood slowly, straightening his understated Tom Ford suit. When he spoke, his voice had lost its apologetic tone. It was calm. Cold. Final. That would be me. I'm the presidential suite guest. And I'm not complaining about the noise. He looked directly at Brittany, at Connor, at every person who'd spent the last hour laughing at his expense, who'd reduced his humanity to racist stereotypes and economic prejudice. I'm complaining about the company. The champagne glass in Madison's hand slipped, shattering on the marble floor in the suddenly silent ballroom. Connor's face went from smug to confused to something that looked like fear. "You're lying. There's no way. I own 15% of this hotel chain," Damien said, his voice carrying now, filling the space with undeniable authority. "I also own commercial properties in 3 states, a venture capital firm, and the building your father's company rents office space in, Trevor. Would you like to see documentation? Or would you prefer I call security to escort all of you out of my hotel?" Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of Manhattan traffic 47 floors below. Because they were all staring at Damien Cross, the janitor's black son, the diversity scholarship kid, the high school loser they'd invited here to mock, the person they'd assumed would stay poor and grateful for their occasional crumbs of attention, and realizing that something had gone terribly, impossibly, devastatingly wrong with their carefully planned humiliation. The black man they tried to put in his place owned the place. And from the look on Damien's face, he was about to make them pay for every racist assumption, every cruel joke, every moment they'd made him feel less than human. The reunion was just beginning. But their comfortable world of unexamined privilege was about to end. Connor recovered first, his corporate lawyer instincts kicking in even as his face stayed pale. "This is ridiculous," he said, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow in the silent ballroom. "Come on, Damien. You're playing some kind of game here. Maybe you work for the hotel. Maintenance or something. And you're pretending to." "Mr. Cross owns significant equity in this property," the hotel manager interrupted, his tone professional but firm. "I've personally dealt with him on 3 separate acquisitions. Would you like me to provide documentation?" "Yes," Trevor demanded. "Because this is insane. There's no way." The manager pulled out a tablet, tapped through several screens, then turned it around. "Legal documents. Ownership records." Damien's name in crisp black text alongside percentages and dollar amounts that made Madison audibly gasp. 15.3%, the manager read. "Acquired through Cross Ventures LLC 18 months ago for $243 million. The number hung in the air like smoke. Brittany's champagne glass trembled in her hand. "That's not possible. Damien, what is this? Some kind of scam? Did you steal someone's identity?" The racist assumption was barely veiled. A black man couldn't possibly have earned this legitimately. Damien pulled out his phone, opened his banking app, and held it up without a word. The balance showed 9 figures. Real. Verified. Undeniable. "How?" Madison whispered. "You were living in the Bronx. Your mom cleaned toilets. You couldn't afford lunch half the time. I built a company," Damien said simply. "Freshman year at NYU. Started in my dorm room with a laptop I bought used for $300. Developed an AI algorithm that predicts market trends by analyzing social media sentiment patterns in real time." Connor shook his head. "That's impossible. Those algorithms require advanced machine learning expertise. You were a scholarship student barely passing calculus." "I was barely passing calculus because I was working 40 hours a week to send money home to my mother," Damien cut in. "But I taught myself coding at night. Spent 3 years building the algorithm. Tested it with every dollar I could save. When it worked, I incorporated. When it proved profitable, venture capitalists came calling. If someone ever doubted you could succeed, what would you do? Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. And someone bought it?" Trevor's disbelief was naked now. "For $97 million, Damien confirmed. 18 months ago. A Silicon Valley firm. The sale made headlines in TechCrunch, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal. None of you noticed because you'd already decided I didn't matter." The ballroom stayed frozen. White faces processing information that contradicted everything they believed about social hierarchy, about who deserved success, about their place at the top of the economic food chain. Then something shifted. Damien watched it happen in real time, the initial shock melting into desperate calculation. Within 30 seconds, the entire dynamic transformed. Madison stepped forward, her hostility replaced with a smile so fake it could have been plastic. Damien, oh my God, I always knew you were brilliant. Remember how I helped you with that history project junior year? You called me the N-word and told me to do the work myself, Damien said flatly. Her smile didn't waver. That was just teenage drama. We're adults now. I'm actually in marketing at my dad's firm. We could really use someone with your tech expertise. Maybe we could grab coffee this week. Trevor pushed forward next. Dude, I was just messing around earlier. You know how it is, reunion humor. But seriously, my dad's company is looking to expand our digital infrastructure. I could introduce you. Your dad's company rents space in a building I own, Damien reminded him. Why would I need an introduction? Brittany set down her champagne and approached with calculated warmth. Damien, I think we got off on the wrong foot tonight. That slideshow was just supposed to be nostalgic fun. You understand, right? No hard feelings. She touched his arm like they were old friends. We should really collaborate on something. I'm in venture capital now. We could. Stop, Damien said. The word cut through the ballroom like a blade. All of you, stop. You spent the last hour mocking me. Laughing at photos of my poverty. Making racist jokes you thought were subtle. Treating me like I was proof that people like me belong in service positions, not leadership. And now that you know I have money, you're pretending we're colleagues. Connor straightened his expensive tie. Look, Damien, you're taking this too seriously. Nobody here is racist. We're colorblind, we don't see race. We see people. And yeah, maybe we joked around a little, but that's what friends do. High school was years ago. Let's move forward as adults. Damien pulled his phone out again. But this time, instead of his banking app, he opened his voice recording application. Hit play. Brittany's voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear. We invited you because we wanted to see how you turned out. It's important for people to see that success isn't for everyone. Some people are meant for different paths. There's no shame in accepting your place. Connor's voice, tell whoever's in the presidential suite that this is a private event we paid good money for. Trevor, probably some old white guy. Madison, future welfare recipient. Subscribe now because this story takes a dark turn. Where are you watching from? Comment below. Every cruel comment. Every laugh. Every racist assumption captured in perfect digital quality. The crowd's faces drained of color as they heard themselves, their contempt, their prejudice, their certainty that the black scholarship kid would stay beneath them forever. I've been recording since I walked in, Damien said quietly. Every word. Every racist microaggression you thought you were hiding. Every admission that you invited me here specifically to humiliate me. Brittany's confidence crumbled. Damien, please. Delete that. You can't. Can't what? Share it. Post it online. Send it to your employers. Damien's voice stayed calm. Why not? You weren't concerned about consequences when you were laughing at my expense. Connor stepped forward, his lawyer mask slipping to reveal something uglier. That recording is illegal without consent. You can't use it. I'll sue you for invasion of privacy. New York is a one-party consent state, Damien interrupted. I'm allowed to record any conversation I'm part of. But please, sue me. I'd love to have these recordings entered as evidence in court. Imagine the headlines. Trevor's face flushed red. You're bluffing. You wouldn't actually. Try me. The two words carried absolute certainty. This wasn't the scared scholarship kid they remembered. This was someone who'd survived poverty, racism, and their cruelty, and come out stronger on the other side. Brittany's hands were shaking now. What do you want? Money? An apology? Just tell us what it'll take to delete that recording. Damien was about to answer when his phone rang. The screen showed, Marcus Webb, attorney. Excuse me, Damien said, stepping away from the group. I need to take this. He answered. Marcus, what's up? His lawyer's voice was urgent, stressed in a way Damien had never heard before. Damien, we have a major problem. I just got served with legal papers. Someone's filing a lawsuit against you. A big one. What kind of lawsuit? Intellectual property theft. They're claiming you stole the algorithm that made you rich. That you plagiarized it from someone else's work. They're suing for $50 million and demanding public acknowledgement that you're a fraud. Damien's blood ran cold. Who's suing me? The plaintiff's name is Brittany Chen. Damien turned slowly. Across the ballroom, Brittany was watching him with an expression that had shifted from terrified to something else entirely. She was smiling now. Not the fake networking smile. Something calculated. Dangerous. Triumphant. She'd known this was coming. The lawsuit wasn't a reaction to tonight's humiliation. It was the reason she'd invited him here in the first place. And Damien realized with sickening clarity, the reunion wasn't her trap. It was his. Damien ended the call with Marcus and walked directly toward Brittany. The reunion crowd parted automatically, sensing the shift in energy from humiliation comedy to something far more dangerous. Brittany stood her ground, that calculated smile still playing at her lips. We need to talk, Damien said quietly. Now. Privately. There's nothing private about this, Brittany replied, loud enough for everyone to hear. You stole intellectual property that belongs to me. The courts will prove it. Connor stepped forward, pulling a leather document folder from his messenger bag. I'm representing Ms. Chen in this matter. Damien, you should know that we have substantial evidence proving you plagiarized the algorithm from collaborative work Brittany contributed to during your time at NYU. We never attended NYU together, Damien said flatly. She went to Columbia. Details, Connor waved dismissively. We have documentation of online collaboration. Study groups. Shared research. Brittany's contributions were essential to your algorithm's development, and you erased her from the credit when you sold the company. If someone tried to steal credit for your success, how would you fight back? Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Damien looked around the ballroom at faces watching with renewed interest. The racist assumption was obvious. Of course the black man hadn't created something this valuable alone. Of course a white woman had been the real brains behind it. The narrative fit their worldview too perfectly to question. Hallway. Now, Damien repeated to Brittany. Unless you want me to dismantle your entire case in front of witnesses. Something flickered in Brittany's eyes, concern, maybe fear, but she nodded. Fine. 5 minutes. They walked to a private corridor outside the ballroom, Connor following like a predator tracking prey. The gilded walls and expensive carpet muffled their footsteps. The moment the door closed behind them, Brittany's mask dropped completely. You actually thought tonight was about nostalgia? She laughed, cold and sharp. About us reminiscing over high school. Damien, I've been planning this for 6 months. Planning what, exactly? Your downfall. She gestured back toward the ballroom. The invitation. The humiliating slideshow. Getting you to brag about your success on camera. All of it was designed to create a narrative, the arrogant tech bro who got lucky and now thinks he's untouchable. Connor pulled documents from his folder, spreading them on a marble side table. We have witness statements from 4 Harrison Heights alumni claiming they participated in study groups where Brittany contributed foundational work to your algorithm. We have emails, fabricated, yes, but expertly done, showing collaboration. We have enough to tie you up in court for years. Damien looked at the documents without touching them. These are forgeries. Prove it, Brittany challenged. Take it to court. Spend 3 years in litigation. Watch every tech publication run stories questioning whether the black kid from the Bronx really built that algorithm alone, or whether he had help he conveniently forgot to credit. Watch investors pull back. Watch your reputation crumble. The racial subtext was explicit now. Courts and media would find it easy to believe a wealthy white woman over a black man claiming sole credit for genius-level work. Stereotypes about affirmative action and undeserved success would do most of Brittany's work for her. You're betting on racism, Damien said quietly. Betting that people will naturally doubt a black man could create something this valuable without stealing it. I'm betting on statistics, Brittany corrected. Black founders get less than 2% of venture capital funding. Everyone knows the system is rigged in your favor through diversity initiatives. People will absolutely believe you had help you're not acknowledging. Connor leaned against the wall, confident. Here's the offer, Damien. $50 million. Public statement acknowledging Brittany's contributions. She's not trying to destroy you, just get what she deserves. Pay up, and this goes away quietly. And if I refuse? Then we file tomorrow morning. Every news outlet gets a press release. Your name becomes synonymous with plagiarism and fraud. Even if you eventually win in court, and that's a big if, your reputation never recovers. The stain sticks. Damien studied them both for a long moment. Brittany's confidence. Connor's smug certainty. The carefully constructed trap designed to exploit both greed and systemic racism. Then he smiled. You really should have done more research before trying to blackmail me. Brittany's expression wavered. What are you talking about? Subscribe now because the next 60 seconds will change everything. Where are you watching from? Comment below. Damien pulled a folder from inside his suit jacket, one he'd been carrying all evening. He slid it across the marble table toward Brittany. 3 weeks ago, when I got your invitation, something felt wrong. You hated me in high school. Why invite me now? So I hired a forensic accountant to investigate your life. Want to know what they found? Brittany's face went pale. Open it, Damien said. With trembling hands, she opened the folder. Inside, bank statements. Wire transfer records. Offshore account numbers. Emails discussing money movement. All with her name on them. $8.2 million, Damien said quietly. Embezzled from your father's hedge fund over the past 2 years. Moved through shell corporations to accounts in the Cayman Islands. Your father has no idea. The SEC has no idea. Yet. Connor grabbed the documents, scanning them rapidly. His confident expression crumbled. You've been stealing from your own father's company, Damien continued. Using falsified investment reports to hide the missing funds. It's actually impressive, you're better at fraud than I expected. But not quite good enough. Brittany's hands were shaking now. You're bluffing. Those documents are fake. They're certified by 3 independent forensic accountants. I have the original bank records. The SEC would love to see them. You wouldn't. Drop the lawsuit by midnight tonight, Damien interrupted, his voice ice. Delete all your fabricated evidence. Disappear from my life permanently. Or tomorrow morning, these documents go to your father, the SEC, and every financial news outlet in New York. Your choice. Connor's lawyer persona had evaporated. Damien, let's discuss this reasonably. We're done discussing. Damien turned toward the ballroom door. Midnight. That's 11 hours from now. I suggest you use the time wisely. He walked away, leaving Brittany staring at the evidence of her own crimes. Her elaborate trap collapsed around her. But he'd only made it 10 steps when Brittany's voice stopped him. Damien. Wait. He turned. She was holding her phone now, her hand steadier, her expression shifted from terrified to something else. Something dangerous. You think you've won? Her voice was different now, not defensive, but strangely calm. You think some embezzlement charges scare me? Damien, what you found is nothing. Absolutely nothing compared to what I know about you. What are you talking about? Brittany's smile returned, but it was genuine this time. Terrifying in its authenticity. Your algorithm. Your precious AI that made you rich. I know where you really got it from. I know whose work you actually built it on. And trust me, when that truth comes out, you'll wish embezzlement was your biggest problem. Damien's blood turned cold. You're lying. Am I? Then why did you legally change your name 5 years ago? Why did you add Kyle as your middle name right after someone named Kyle Chen died in a car accident? Why does your algorithm's core architecture match research Kyle was working on before he died? The hallway spun. Damien's throat went dry. Kyle Chen was my brother, Brittany said softly. And you stole everything from him. So no, Damien. This conversation isn't over. It's just beginning. Damien couldn't breathe. Kyle Chen. The name hit him like a physical blow, dragging him back 5 years to late nights in his mother's cramped Bronx apartment, hunched over a used laptop, learning to code from an anonymous mentor who called himself K_Cipher, on an obscure programming forum. Kyle Chen, Damien repeated slowly. Your brother was K_Cipher. Brittany's expression shifted, surprise mixing with something that looked like grief. You knew him. I never knew his real name. He never told me. We met online when I was 17. He taught me everything, coding fundamentals, algorithm design, machine learning basics. He said he mentored kids from rough backgrounds because the tech industry needed more diverse voices. That sounds like Kyle. Brittany's voice cracked. Always trying to save people nobody else cared about. Connor cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the emotional turn. This doesn't change the fact that. Shut up, Connor, Brittany snapped. Just shut up for once. She looked back at Damien. We need to talk. Really talk. Not here. The hotel bar. Just you and me. Damien studied her face, searching for the trap. But what he saw instead was pain, raw and real in a way her earlier cruelty hadn't been. Fine. 20 minutes. Connor doesn't come. The Plaza's bar was almost empty at this hour. Damien chose a corner booth away from curious ears. Brittany arrived 5 minutes later, her earlier confidence replaced with something fragile. She ordered whiskey. Damien stayed with water. Kyle died 5 years ago, Brittany started without preamble. Car accident on the FDR Drive. Drunk driver ran a red light. He was 26. PhD student at MIT. Brilliant. Kind. The only person in my family who ever saw me as more than a disappointment. I'm sorry, Damien said, and meant it. If someone you never met changed your entire life, what would you do to honor them? Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. The night before he died, Kyle came home excited. Said he'd been working on an algorithm that could revolutionize market prediction. Something about sentiment analysis and neural networks. I didn't understand half of it. But he mentioned he'd been mentoring this incredible kid online. Brilliant black teenager from the Bronx, he said. Fighting a system designed to fail him, but his mind is extraordinary. Kyle never told me the kid's name. Said online anonymity helped you focus on learning without worrying about identity or background. Damien's throat tightened. He remembered those conversations. K_Cipher never asking about his race, his poverty, his circumstances, only caring about Damien's ideas, his potential, his willingness to learn. After Kyle died, Brittany continued, I went through his computer. Found his research notes. The algorithm he'd been developing. It was incomplete, brilliant foundation, but missing key components. I didn't understand it well enough to finish his work. The research sat in boxes for years. Until you saw my company in the news. Until I saw your name. Damien Kyle Cross. You legally added Kyle to your name 6 months after my brother died. Then 2 years later, you sold an algorithm that looked suspiciously similar to the research I'd found in Kyle's notes. Damien pulled out his phone, opened his photos, and showed Brittany a screenshot from 5 years ago. A forum conversation with K_Cypher. K_Cypher, you've got talent, kid. Real talent. But talent without knowledge is just potential. I'm going to teach you everything I know about machine learning. Not because you're black or poor, but because you're hungry in a way most privileged students aren't. That hunger matters. Damien C_17, why are you helping me? You don't even know me. K_Cypher, because someone helped me once when I needed it. And because the tech world needs voices like yours. Don't waste this gift. Brittany's eyes filled with tears reading her dead brother's words. He taught me for 8 months, Damien said quietly. Then one day, he just stopped responding. I didn't know why. Didn't know he'd died until I saw an obituary months later. By then, it felt too late to reach out to his family. What would I say? Your brother mentored me anonymously online. It sounded meaningless. So you added Kyle to your name. To honor him. To remember that someone saw potential in me when nobody else did. To carry his memory while building the future he taught me to reach for. Brittany wiped her eyes. But the algorithm. Damien, I've seen Kyle's research. Your algorithm's architecture is too similar to be coincidence. Damien unlocked his phone again, pulled up a folder of documents. Kyle taught me the fundamentals. The theory. How to think about machine learning problems. But my algorithm took 3 years to build after he died. I have time-stamped code repositories, development logs, every iteration documented. Kyle showed me the direction. I walked the path myself. He slid the phone across. Brittany scrolled through files showing development from scratch, early failures, iterations, breakthroughs, all dated and verified. Kyle gave me the map, Damien said. I built the road. His research was theoretical. Mine was practical application. Similar foundation, different execution. Like a teacher inspiring a student's work without writing it for them. Subscribe now because what happens next changes everything. Where are you watching from? Comment below. Brittany was quiet for a long time, reading through the documentation. Finally, she looked up. Connor told me you stole Kyle's work. That you plagiarized everything. He said we could prove it in court. Connor lied to you. The question is why? He said he wanted to help me honor Kyle's legacy. Said you didn't deserve the credit because, she stopped. Because I'm black, Damien finished. Because a black kid from the Bronx couldn't possibly have built something this valuable without stealing it from a white PhD student. That was the narrative Connor fed you, wasn't it? Brittany's face crumpled. I wanted to believe the worst about you. After high school, after how we treated you, I wanted you to be a fraud. It made me feel better about my own failures. Connor gave me permission to hate you legitimately. Who is Connor, really? Because no legitimate lawyer builds a case on fabricated evidence. Before Brittany could answer, the bar door burst open. Connor stood there with hotel security and 2 NYPD officers. That's him. Connor pointed at Damien. That's Damien Cross. I have proof he's been operating under a false identity. His real name is Damien Kyle Cross. He stole that name from a deceased person. Identity theft. Fraud. And I have documentation proving he built his company on stolen intellectual property. The officers approached cautiously. One of them addressed Damien. "Sir, we need to ask you some questions about." "Stop right there." A woman's voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the bar. She walked in wearing an expensive suit, holding federal credentials. "FBI Special Agent Rivera. Connor Wright, you're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and falsifying federal documents." Connor's confident expression shattered. "What? No, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Agent Rivera nodded to the NYPD officers, who immediately moved to handcuff Connor instead of Damien. "You're a con artist who's been targeting successful alumni from wealthy schools for 3 years. This is your 4th attempted extortion using fake lawsuits." Brittany stared in shock. "What are you talking about?" Agent Rivera looked at Damien. "Mr. Cross contacted us 3 weeks ago when he suspected something was wrong with the reunion invitation. We've been investigating Connor Mills, his real name, and building a case. Tonight was a sting operation." Connor struggled against the handcuffs. "That's insane. I'm a lawyer. I work at—" "You work at nothing," Agent Rivera interrupted. "You're not a lawyer. You were disbarred in Connecticut 2 years ago for ethics violations. You've been impersonating attorneys and targeting people like Ms. Chen, vulnerable, angry, with axes to grind against successful minorities. You exploit their pain and racism to extort money." Brittany looked like she might be sick. The embezzlement evidence. The witness statements. The lawsuit. All fabricated by Mr. Mills to manipulate you. Agent Rivera turned to Damien. "Mr. Cross, thank you for your cooperation with this investigation." As officers led Connor away, still protesting, Brittany buried her face in her hands. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Damien, I'm so sorry. For high school. For tonight. For letting Connor use my grief to hurt you. Kyle would be ashamed of me." Damien sat back down across from her. "Kyle would want you to do better. That's what he taught me, that mistakes are just data points showing us how to improve." Brittany looked up with red eyes. "How can you be kind to me after everything?" "Because Kyle saw past my circumstances to my potential. The least I can do is try to see past your pain to the person you might become." For the first time in 5 years, Damien felt the weight of Kyle's mentorship fully, not just the technical skills, but the humanity. The belief that people could be more than their worst moments. And in that hotel bar, watching Brittany process her manipulation and grief, Damien finally understood what Kyle had been trying to teach him all along. Success wasn't about winning. It was about refusing to let cruelty make you cruel in return. Agent Rivera gestured for Damien and Brittany to remain seated while the NYPD officers processed Connor Mills outside the bar. "I need to explain what you've both been caught up in," she said, pulling up a chair. "Connor Mills has been running this con for 3 years. He targets high school reunions at elite private schools, specifically looking for 2 things: successful minority alumni and bitter classmates with grievances." Brittany wiped her eyes. "How does that even work?" "Social media research. Connor finds minority success stories, usually Black or Latino tech entrepreneurs, athletes, entertainers. Then he identifies their former classmates who might harbor resentment. He poses as a corporate lawyer, befriends the resentful classmate, and manufactures evidence of intellectual property theft. The con works because of implicit bias. Courts and media naturally doubt whether minorities achieved success legitimately." Damien's jaw tightened. "He weaponizes racism." "Exactly. His previous targets all settled out of court for 6 to 7 figures because fighting the accusations would have destroyed their reputations regardless of truth. Connor takes 40%, the bitter classmate gets 60, and they move on to the next mark." Brittany looked sick. The embezzlement evidence he showed Damien. "The bank statements showing I stole from my father." "Completely fabricated," Agent Rivera confirmed. Connor's specialty is financial document forgery. He planted that evidence to control both of you, threatening Damien to pressure settlement, and keeping you compliant through blackmail fear. But the witness statements? Brittany asked. He said he had 4 Harrison Heights alumni willing to testify. All fake signatures on documents Connor created. We've already contacted those alumni. None of them knew anything about a lawsuit. Connor was counting on you both being too panicked to verify. If someone used your pain to hurt others, how would you make it right? Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Agent Rivera pulled out her tablet, showing them Connor's case file. We've been tracking him since his Connecticut disbarment. He's attempted this scam 17 times. 12 succeeded because victims settled quietly. 3 failed when targets fought back and exposed the fraud. 2 are still pending. Tonight makes 18. Why did Damien contact you 3 weeks ago? Brittany looked at him. How did you know? I didn't know for certain, Damien admitted. But the invitation felt wrong. You hated me in high school. Why reach out now? So I ran background checks. Found Connor's connection to you. Discovered his disbarred status. That's when I called the FBI. And you agreed to come tonight anyway? Agent Rivera suggested it. Said if Connor was running a con, he'd spring the trap at the reunion. Better to catch him with witnesses and clear recordings than let him target someone else. Brittany's hands trembled. So the slideshow, the humiliation, all of that, you knew it was coming. I knew something was coming. The cruelty was exactly what I expected from the people who made high school hell. I just didn't know about the lawsuit until tonight. Agent Rivera stood. Ms. Chen, you're not being charged with anything. You were a victim of manipulation. But Mr. Cross has a decision to make about the reunion recordings. The racist comments, the public humiliation, that's all documented. Damien pulled out his phone, looked at the hours of recordings. Every cruel laugh. Every racist microaggression. Every moment of deliberate harm. He could destroy them. Post it online. Watch their careers implode. Make them feel the powerlessness he'd felt every day at Harrison Heights Academy. Delete it, he said quietly. Brittany's head snapped up. What? I'm deleting the recordings. All of them. Damien, they don't deserve your mercy. This isn't about what they deserve. It's about who I choose to be. Kyle taught me that brilliance without humanity is just cleverness. I won't become cruel because cruelty was done to me. Subscribe now because this ending will restore your faith. Where are you watching from? Comment below. Agent Rivera nodded with respect. That's your choice, Mr. Cross. For what it's worth, I think it's the right one. After she left, Brittany and Damien sat in silence. Finally, she spoke. I don't know how to fix what I did to you. In high school. Tonight. I can't take back 5 years of racism and cruelty. No, you can't. But you can do better going forward. How? Damien thought about Kyle. About anonymous mentorship that changed everything. About seeing potential in people everyone else overlooked. Help me build something. A scholarship fund at Harrison Heights. Full rides for black and brown kids from low-income families pursuing STEM. We'll call it the Kyle Chen Memorial Scholarship. Honor your brother by opening doors for kids like me. Tears streamed down Brittany's face. He would love that. But why would you want me involved after everything? Because redemption requires action, not just apology. You can't undo the past. But you can help create a different future. 6 months later, Damien stood at the podium in Harrison Heights Academy's auditorium. The room was packed, students, parents, faculty, and 5 scholarship recipients sitting in the front row. All of them black or brown kids from the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn. Kids who looked like younger versions of himself. Brittany sat in the second row, having spent 6 months working with Damien to build the foundation. The embezzlement charges Connor invented never existed, her relationship with her father slowly healing as she explained the manipulation she'd endured. Trevor had written a genuine apology letter after attending racial bias training. Damien accepted it cautiously. Madison sent money to the scholarship fund anonymously. Connor was awaiting trial facing 15 years for fraud. 5 years ago, I sat in your seat, Damien told the scholarship recipients. Wondering if I belonged here. Wondering if kids from my neighborhood deserved to dream big. Someone I never met face to face believed I did. His name was Kyle Chen, and he taught me that intelligence has no zip code. Talent has no skin color. And potential exists everywhere if we're willing to see it. He looked at Brittany, who was crying quietly. These scholarships aren't charity. They're investments in genius that already exists. You don't need to prove you belong here. Harrison Heights needs to prove it deserves you. After the ceremony, Brittany approached him with a worn leather journal. I finally had the courage to read Kyle's journals last week. His last entry was about you. She handed it to him. Damien opened to a page dated 5 years ago, 2 days before Kyle's death. Met an incredible kid online today. Black. 17. Bronx. Fighting a system designed to fail him at every turn. But his mind is extraordinary, he sees patterns in code most MIT students miss. I told him I'd help him change the world. Truth is, I think he's going to teach me more than I teach him. About resilience. About brilliance that exists outside privilege. About what education could be if we stopped gatekeeping knowledge. I'm going to make sure he has every tool he needs. Not because of diversity quotas or charity. Because genius deserves recognition regardless of whose body it inhabits. Damien's vision blurred reading words from a mentor who'd seen his humanity when everyone else saw only his circumstances. Thank you, he told Brittany. For sharing this. For choosing to honor Kyle properly. For doing the hard work of becoming better. Thank you for believing I could. They stood in the hallway where Damien once walked alone, now filled with scholarship students laughing and dreaming and believing in futures that poverty had tried to deny them. Kyle Chen's legacy wasn't the algorithm he'd started researching. It was the lives he'd touched by refusing to let circumstance determine worth. And Damien Cross had learned the most important lesson: success measured in dollars was hollow. Success measured in doors opened for others was eternal.